Lonely cowboy took in 1/8 year. Old girl who was left tied to a fence by her drunk father. The sun was low in the sky, casting long golden shadows across the dusty dirt road that wound through the fields outside the small town. The air smelled faintly of dry grass and earth, carrying the quiet sounds of nature, birds chirping, the rustle of leaves, and the occasional distant bark of a dog. On this quiet afternoon, the only moving figure was a lone cowboy riding slowly on his horse. He was a man of few words, with a weathered face and strong hands that showed years of hard work on the ranch. His clothes were simple, his hat pulled low to shield his eyes from the sun, and his boots had the dust of many long days. The locals knew him as a quiet, solitary man who preferred his own company and the rhythm of the land to the noise of the town. As he rode, his eyes scanned the horizon, taking in the familiar sights: the wooden fence posts, the gentle slopes of the hills, the grazing cows in the distance. It was a peaceful day, and he thought it would pass quietly, just like many others before it. But then something unusual caught his attention. A small, dark shape was slumped against a fence a little way off the road. At first, he thought it might be an animal, perhaps a dog that had wandered too far. But as he rode closer, his heart skipped a beat. It was a girl. She looked no older than 18. Her hair was tangled, her clothes were wrinkled and dirty, and she was tied to the fence with rough rope around her wrists. She was struggling weakly, trying to free herself, but the knots were tight. Tears streaked her dusty cheeks, and her eyes, wide with fear, locked onto him as he approached. For a moment, the cowboy's chest tightened. He had seen trouble before, but nothing like this. There was something raw and fragile about the way she looked, something that immediately demanded his attention. "Hey," he said softly, keeping his voice calm. "It's okay. I'm not gonna hurt you." The girl flinched at his voice, but didn't speak. She had been left alone like this, abandoned by someone she should have been able to trust. After a moment, she finally whispered, My dad. He left me here." Her voice was small, shaking, but it carried the weight of fear and pain. The cowboy dismounted and stepped closer, careful not to scare her further. He knelt beside her, studying the knots. They were old and rough, but he had untied many difficult knots in his life, from ropes on the ranch to tricky fishing lines. Gently, he began working on the ropes that held her wrists. As he worked, he noticed the bruises on her arms, faint but visible, and the dirt smudges on her face. Each detail told a story of neglect, fear, and pain. "Can you tell me what happened?" he asked quietly, keeping his hand steady as he untied her. The girl hesitated, glancing nervously over her shoulder at the road leading back to the town. "He was drinking. Got mad at me," said I. "I did something wrong. Then he tied me here, said I had to learn a lesson." Her voice cracked, and she swallowed hard. She looked away, ashamed, scared that anyone hearing might judge her. The cowboy nodded slowly, understanding her fear. He had seen people make terrible mistakes when they were angry or drunk, and he knew that fear could be as dangerous as any wound. He finished loosening the last knot and gently lifted the rope off her wrists. "There you go," he said. "You're free now." She rubbed her sore wrists and took a shaky breath. For the first time in a while, she felt a small sense of relief. But the fear didn't leave her entirely. Her father's words, his anger, and the feeling of being abandoned were still heavy in her mind. She glanced at the road again, unsure where she could go, unsure if anyone would help her. The cowboy extended a hand, offering her a small but steady sense of security. "You can come with me," he said simply. "I have a place not far from here. It's safe. You don't have to go back there." She hesitated, doubt flickering across her face. She had been let down before, but something in his calm voice and the way he looked at her without judgment made her pause. She nodded slowly, still cautious, and let him help her onto his horse. He guided her carefully, making sure she was balanced and comfortable. The ride to his ranch was quiet at first. Neither spoke much. The girl's mind was racing, thinking about what had happened, thinking about her father, and wondering if she was making the right choice. The cowboy didn't push her to talk. He simply rode steadily, letting her adjust to the new reality that someone cared enough to help. As they rode through the open fields, the sun continued its slow descent, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. The breeze was cool against their faces, carrying the scents of grass and earth. The girl couldn't remember the last time she had felt the air without fear pressing on her chest. For a moment she closed her eyes and breathed deeply, letting herself feel a small sense of peace. When they arrived at the ranch, the cowboy led her down a small path lined with wooden fences. The ranch was modest but well kept, with a few horses grazing and a small barn in the distance. It was quiet, safe, and full of the kind of calm that only comes from years of steady work and routine. He helped her dismount and guided her inside the main house, offering her a glass of water and a place to sit. "You must be hungry," he said. "I'll get you something to eat." She nodded, still unsure of what to say but grateful for the simple kindness. As she drank the water, she noticed the walls of the house, simple wooden panels, pictures of horses and fields, a sense of home that seemed solid and safe. It was a stark contrast to the fear and chaos she had known for so long. Over the next few moments, she began to relax slightly. The cowboy spoke softly about everyday things: horses, chores, the weather, never pressing her to talk about what had happened. His patience was quiet but steady, giving her the space she needed to feel safe. Eventually, the girl started to open up a little. She told him her name and a few small details about her life, careful to keep the story brief. Each word was like a small step toward trust. The cowboy listened without interruption, nodding occasionally, letting her know she was heard and believed. By the time the sun had fully set, painting the sky with deep purples and blues, the girl felt a small flicker of hope. She was still scared, still unsure of what the future held, but for the first time in a long time, she felt that maybe, just maybe, she could be safe. The cowboy prepared a simple meal for her and himself, sitting across the table in silence, sharing the quiet comfort of routine. After dinner, he showed her a small room with a bed and fresh linens, a place she could call her own for the night. "Get some rest," he said. "You're safe here." As she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling and listening to the quiet sounds of the ranch, the distant lowing of cows, the creak of the barn doors, the soft rustle of leaves, she felt a strange mix of emotions. Relief, fear, gratitude, and uncertainty all tangled together inside her. But above all, there was a small spark of trust. For the first time, someone had stepped in without judgment, without anger, without expecting anything in return. Outside her window, the moon rose slowly over the fields, casting a gentle glow over the ranch. The cowboy was outside checking on the horses and making sure everything was secure. He had saved many animals, fixed countless fences, and worked through storms and hardships. But tonight, he had saved something far more fragile: a young girl's sense of safety, a small chance at a better life. The night was quiet, almost sacred in its stillness. And for the first time since she had been left tied to that fence, the girl allowed herself to believe that maybe she didn't have to face the world alone. She drifted off to sleep with that tiny, fragile hope in her heart, unaware of the challenges ahead, but certain that for now she was safe. The next morning, sunlight streamed through the small window of the girl's room, waking her gently. The sound of birds singing and the soft rustle of leaves outside was a comforting reminder that she was safe. For the first time in days, maybe even weeks, she felt a calm that didn't come with fear or trembling. She sat up slowly, taking in the room: a small bed with clean sheets, a wooden dresser, and a simple chair in the corner. Everything smelled faintly of soap and wood. A homely scent that made her feel grounded. She heard movement in the kitchen and slowly walked out. The cowboy was already preparing breakfast, quietly frying eggs and toasting bread. The smell of food made her stomach rumble. She hadn't eaten much since leaving her father's house, too scared to think about meals. "Morning!" he said quietly, looking up from the stove. "Sleep well?" She nodded, still hesitant to speak too much. "Yes, thank you," she murmured. Her voice sounded small, almost fragile. but he heard the gratitude behind it.
He didn't push her for more words. Instead, he set a plate of eggs and toast in front of her, pouring her a glass of milk.
They ate in silence, a calm kind of silence that didn't feel empty. After a few bites, she glanced out the window, watching the horses in the field. The cowboy noticed her gaze. "They're friendly," he said. "If you want, I can show you how to feed them later." The girl hesitated. She had never spent much time around animals, especially horses, but the idea made her curious. I'd like that," she said quietly. After breakfast, the cowboy led her outside. The sun was warm but not harsh, and the air smelled of grass and earth. He brought her to the paddock, where a few horses grazed peacefully. "Start with this one," he said, pointing to a gentle brown horse with a white mark on its forehead. "He's calm and easy to handle."
At first, she was nervous.
The horse was much bigger than she expected, and the idea of touching it made her palms sweat. But the cowboy guided her patiently, showing her how to stroke the horse's neck and hold the reins. Slowly, she began to relax. The horse nudged her gently with its nose, and she laughed softly for the first time in days. "See," the cowboy said with a small smile, "nothing to worry about. They just want a little attention and care." The morning passed with small lessons: how to brush the horse, how to feed it oats, and even how to walk beside it while it followed her. The girl found herself smiling more freely than she had in a long time. The cowboy didn't say much, but his calm presence was reassuring. He gave instructions, answered questions, and let her make mistakes without judgment. By lunchtime, she felt a sense of accomplishment, a tiny spark of confidence that had been missing for so long. After lunch, she sat outside resting in the shade of a tree while the cowboy worked on repairing a fence. The rhythmic sound of his hammer and the occasional neigh of the horses created a soothing atmosphere. She wanted to speak, to share more about herself, but the words felt heavy. Memories of her father's anger, the yelling, the bruises, all pressed on her mind. The cowboy noticed her quiet mood and walked over, kneeling beside her. "You don't have to talk if you're not ready," he said gently. "But if you ever want to, I'll listen." Her eyes filled with tears, but this time they weren't just fear. They were relief, gratitude, and the release of pent-up emotion. I don't know where to start," she whispered. "I haven't told anyone about everything." "That's okay," he said softly. "Take your time. You don't have to share everything at once. Just start with what feels safe." She took a deep breath and began to speak in small, careful pieces. She told him about her father, his drinking, the times he yelled and punished her for things she didn't understand. She spoke about her dreams, the small hopes she had tucked away, and how scared she was that she would never be free from fear. The cowboy listened quietly, nodding occasionally, offering reassurance with his presence. Hours passed, and the sun began to dip lower in the sky. They walked together to the barn, where he showed her how to feed the animals for the evening. The girl laughed when a goat nibbled at her sleeve and felt a warmth spread through her chest, a feeling she hadn't experienced in a long time.
As they finished the chores, she realized how much she was learning and growing in just one day.
The cowboy wasn't just teaching her about animals and ranch work. He was teaching her patience, calm, and the importance of trust. She felt a tiny but growing sense that life could be better than she had imagined. Dinner was simple but hearty, and afterward, the cowboy suggested she take a walk around the property. "It helps clear your mind," he said. She agreed, and they strolled quietly. The evening sky painted in soft shades of pink and purple. The air was cool, and the sounds of the ranch settled into a gentle rhythm. She found herself talking more freely, sharing small details about her favorite memories, the books she liked, and her dreams for the future. For the first time, she felt a sense of normalcy. She was still frightened by what had happened, but the fear no longer dominated her every thought. The cowboy's steady presence reminded her that she could take things one step at a time, that she could trust someone, and that kindness still existed in the world. Later, as night fell, they sat on the porch listening to the soft chorus of crickets. She watched the stars emerge one by one, their gentle light reflecting in her eyes. The cowboy handed her a warm blanket, and she wrapped it around her shoulders. "You've been through a lot. It's okay to rest and take it slow." She nodded, feeling a sense of safety she hadn't known in years. The world outside her small room, once frightening and uncertain, now seemed vast and full of possibilities. For the first time, she imagined a future where she could make choices, where she didn't have to live in fear, where she could grow stronger every day. That night, as she lay in bed, she reflected on the day. She had fed horses, repaired fences, laughed, and even shared pieces of her heart. She realized that healing wouldn't happen overnight, but with patience and care it could begin. And for the first time, she allowed herself to hope that one day she could be truly free. Outside, the cowboy made his rounds one last time, checking on the animals and the property. He paused to look at the girl's window, a quiet sense of satisfaction settling over him. He had no desire for recognition or thanks. He simply knew that sometimes the right action was to offer safety and compassion when it was most needed. The night was peaceful, the wind carrying the gentle sounds of the ranch through the quiet darkness. And as the girl drifted into sleep, she felt a small but powerful truth. She was not alone. She was not helpless, and there were people in the world who would act with kindness when she needed it most. The following morning began quietly at the ranch. Sunlight spilled over the fields, casting a warm glow on the horses grazing peacefully and the barn standing quietly in the distance. The girl woke up early, as was her habit now, and looked out the window. For the first time, she noticed the gentle movement of life around her, not the chaos and fear of home, but a calm rhythm of work and care. She dressed quickly, tying her hair back, and stepped outside. The cowboy was already tending to the horses, brushing their coats and checking the fences. He looked up when he saw her and nodded. "Morning," he said quietly. "Ready to help with the chores today?" She nodded, feeling a small thrill of confidence. The past 2 days had taught her more than she realized. How to handle animals, how to work patiently, how to keep calm in situations that once would have terrified her. Even so, a shadow of anxiety lingered in her chest. The thought of her father, of what he might do if he found her, loomed quietly in her mind. They worked together in the fields, feeding the animals, repairing fences, and carrying water. The girl felt her muscles grow tired, but in a good way. This was hard work, yes, but it was honest work. Work that connected her to the earth and the rhythm of life in a way her home had never allowed. And through it all, the cowboy's steady presence gave her a sense of safety she hadn't known before. As they walked back toward the house to wash up for breakfast, a sudden sound made her heart skip. The faint crunch of tires on gravel reached her ears. She froze, looking toward the road. Her father. He was driving slowly, his face red and angry, a bottle loosely held in his hand. Panic shot through her, and she stepped back instinctively. "He's here," she whispered, her voice trembling. The cowboy's eyes narrowed slightly, but his voice remained calm. "Stay close to me," he said. "Don't worry. We'll handle this." Her father's truck pulled up near the edge of the property, and he stumbled out, yelling and waving his arms. "Where is she?" he demanded, his words slurred. "I know you've got my girl here." The girl's stomach twisted in fear. She had imagined this moment countless times since leaving, but now it was real. She wanted to run, to hide, but the cowboy's calm hand on her shoulder reminded her to stay grounded. "Sir," the cowboy said steadily, stepping forward, "she is safe here. You need to leave. You're not welcome on this property while you're in this state. If you don't leave, I will have to call the authorities." Her father laughed harshly, a sound filled with anger and disbelief.
"Call the authorities? Who do you think you are?"
"She's my daughter. I can do what I want." His voice grew louder, echoing across the fields. The girl's chest tightened. For a moment she felt paralyzed, remembering every cruel word, every punishment she had endured at his hands. But then, looking at the cowboy, she felt a spark of courage. He had never yelled, never used anger, yet he stood firm. He was calm, strong, and unwavering. If he could do this, maybe she could too. Taking a deep breath, she stepped forward. "No," she said firmly. her voice shaking but clear. "I'm not going back. I don't have to live like that anymore. I am leaving, and I won't let you control me." Her father's eyes widened in shock, then narrowed with fury. He took a step toward her, but the cowboy moved slightly in front of her, placing himself as a barrier, not threatening, just protective. "She is an adult now," he said calmly. "She can make her own decisions. You need to leave." For a tense moment, her father wavered, the anger in his eyes flickering with confusion. The girl's voice grew steadier.
I am not afraid of you anymore. I won't let you hurt me.
"I am choosing to be safe, and I am choosing a life away from fear." The cowboy's presence gave her the strength to speak her truth. And for the first time, she felt empowered, realizing that she could stand up to the man who had caused her so much pain. Her father, anger and humiliation mixing on his face, finally stormed off toward his truck, muttering curses under his breath. The girl's knees wobbled slightly, relief flooding through her. She had faced him and spoken her mind. She had chosen her own life, and that choice felt heavy but liberating. The cowboy placed a hand on her shoulder. "You did good," he said simply. "I'm proud of you." She allowed herself a small smile, the first real smile in a long time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for everything." The rest of the day passed in a blur. They went about their chores, but there was a new energy in the air. The girl felt lighter, freer. She had faced her fear and survived, and even though she knew there would be more challenges ahead, she now believed in her own strength. Later, as the sun began to dip behind the hills, they sat on the porch together, watching the sky turn shades of orange and pink. The girl spoke quietly about what had just happened, her voice calm now. "I can't believe I did it," she said. "I actually stood up to him." "You were brave," the cowboy replied. "It's not easy to face someone who has hurt you, but you did. That shows how strong you really are." She nodded, thinking about the path ahead. She knew her father might try to come back or cause trouble, but she also knew she wasn't alone. She had the cowboy, she had the ranch, and for the first time she had a sense of safety and support she could rely on. That evening, after dinner, the cowboy suggested they make a plan for her future. "You deserve to have a life that's yours," he said. "We can contact someone to help you with housing, work, or school. You don't have to do this alone." The girl felt a mix of emotions, relief, gratitude, and a small flicker of excitement. The thought of being able to make her own choices to build a life free from fear was overwhelming but thrilling. "I'd like that," she said softly. "I want to try. I want to live my life." They spent the evening talking quietly, mapping out small steps she could take. The cowboy didn't rush her or pressure her. He simply offered guidance and support. They discussed options for contacting social services, enrolling in classes, and finding part-time work. Each plan was small but meaningful, giving her a sense of control over her own life for the first time. Before bed, the girl stepped outside one last time, looking up at the stars. The night was calm, the air cool and fresh. She felt a strange mix of emotions, fear of the unknown, relief at her current safety, and excitement for the life she could now build. The cowboy watched from the porch, his eyes calm and steady, a quiet reassurance that she was not alone. That night, she slept with a sense of security she had never known. She dreamt of wide-open fields, of horses grazing peacefully, and of herself walking confidently into a future she was beginning to shape. The past still lingered, but it no longer controlled her. She had faced her fear, spoken her truth, and taken the first steps toward independence. And for the first time in a long time, she believed that she could heal. She believed that life could be kinder than she had imagined. She believed that one person's quiet strength and kindness could change everything. The next morning, the girl woke to the gentle sunlight streaming through her window, feeling a sense of calm she hadn't felt in years. The events of the previous day, standing up to her father, finding courage she didn't know she had, still lingered in her mind. But unlike before, the memories didn't come with panic or fear. Instead, there was a quiet strength inside her, a small flame that refused to be extinguished. She dressed quickly and stepped outside, where the cowboy was already feeding the horses. The air smelled fresh, carrying the scent of grass and earth. She watched him work, noticing the calmness in his movements and the care he gave to each animal. For a moment, she realized how much she had come to trust him. He wasn't just someone who had saved her, he was someone who had shown her patience, kindness, and quiet strength, the kind that didn't need to shout to be felt. "Morning," he said as he noticed her approach. "You sleep well?" "Yes," she replied softly, feeling the weight of yesterday's courage still lingering. "Thank you for everything." The cowboy nodded without saying much, his presence reassuring in its simplicity. "You're welcome. Ready to help with the morning chores?" She smiled and followed him to the barn. The routine of feeding the animals and checking the fences had become almost comforting, a rhythm she could rely on. As she worked, she realized that these small tasks were teaching her more than she had expected: patience, responsibility, and the sense that even small efforts could make a difference. After finishing the morning chores, the cowboy led her to a quiet spot near the edge of the property. "I think it's time we start planning your next steps," he said gently. "You're safe here, yes, but you also deserve to have your own life, your own independence. We can start figuring out how to make that happen." The girl's heart skipped a beat. She had spent so long living under fear and control that the idea of making her own choices felt both thrilling and terrifying. I don't know where to start," she admitted, her voice small but honest. "That's okay," he said calmly. "We'll take it one step at a time. We can contact someone who can help you find a place to stay, help with schooling or work, and guide you through the process. You won't be alone, and you can go at your own pace." She nodded, feeling a mix of relief and excitement. For the first time, she realized that her life didn't have to be defined by fear, by her father, or by the past. She could choose a different path, one where safety, trust, and hope could exist. Over the next few days, they worked together on small steps. The cowboy helped her write letters and make phone calls to social services, guiding her through each conversation and explaining her options. They visited a local community center where she could learn new skills, meet supportive adults, and begin planning for a life on her own. Each step was small but meaningful, giving her a growing sense of control and empowerment. In the evenings, they would sit on the porch together, talking quietly about her dreams and goals. She spoke of wanting to finish her education, learn more about animals, and even travel someday. He listened without judgment, offering encouragement and advice when needed. Slowly, her confidence grew, and she began to see herself not as a victim but as someone capable of shaping her own future. One afternoon, the cowboy brought her to the fields to ride a horse alone for the first time. The sun was high, and the air smelled of grass and warmth. She approached the gentle brown horse with a mix of excitement and nervousness. I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "You can," he said simply. "I'll be right here if you need me, but I think you're ready." She took a deep breath and mounted the horse, holding the reins tightly at first. The cowboy walked beside her, guiding her gently as she found her balance. Slowly, she began to feel the rhythm of the horse beneath her, the freedom of movement, and the sense of trust between herself and the animal. A laugh escaped her lips, pure and light, and the cowboy smiled quietly, proud of her courage. After the ride, she sat on the porch, brushing the horse's mane, feeling a sense of accomplishment she had never known before. "I never thought I could do something like this," she said softly. "You're stronger than you realize," he replied. "You've come a long way already, and there's so much more ahead of you." As the days passed, the girl continued to grow more independent. She started taking classes at the community center, learning practical skills for work and life. She found small jobs helping neighbors with gardening and animal care, gaining confidence and experience. Each task, each interaction, built her sense of self-worth and resilience. Through it all, the cowboy remained a steady presence, offering guidance when needed but never controlling her choices. Their bond deepened not through romance or dependence but through trust, respect, and shared understanding. He had taught her that safety and kindness could exist in the world, and that she had the strength to face challenges without fear. One evening, as the sun set over the fields, the girl walked to the edge of the property, looking out at the horizon. The sky was painted in shades of pink, orange, and purple, the colors reflecting the promise of a new day. She thought about her past, about the fear and pain she had endured, and realized that while it would always be a part of her, it no longer controlled her. The cowboy joined her quietly, standing beside her in comfortable silence. She turned to him and smiled. "I feel different now," she said softly. "Like I can really start living my life." "You can," he said. "You've earned it. You've worked hard, faced your fears, and made choices for yourself. That's how change begins." The girl's eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief and hope. She felt a sense of gratitude so deep it was almost overwhelming. She had been given a second chance, a chance to heal, grow, and build a life she could be proud of. Over the next few weeks, the girl settled into a routine that balanced work, learning, and time for herself. She spent mornings at the community center, afternoons helping on the ranch, and evenings reflecting on her progress. She found joy in small moments, a horse nuzzling her hand, a neighbor's smile, the quiet beauty of the sunset. Each day her confidence grew, and her sense of independence became stronger. One day, the cowboy suggested she start volunteering at a local animal shelter. Hesitant at first, she agreed, realizing that helping others could be another way to heal and gain purpose. The work was challenging but rewarding, and she discovered a natural ability to care for animals, connecting with them in a way that mirrored the trust and patience she had learned at the ranch. Her father never returned to the ranch, and the girl learned that she had the right to protect herself and seek help if he tried. She felt empowered, knowing that she had resources, support, and the courage to stand up for herself. Months passed, and the girl grew into a confident young woman. She had learned to face fear with courage, to trust the right people, and to take control of her own life. The cowboy watched her progress with quiet pride, knowing that his role was simply to guide and support, not to control. She had taken the lessons of trust, patience, and kindness and turned them into strength. One bright morning, she stood at the edge of the fields, looking out at the open land stretching before her. She had her horse ready, saddle and reins in place, and for the first time she felt a sense of freedom that went beyond the ranch. This was her life, her choices, her path forward. She mounted the horse with confidence, feeling the powerful rhythm of the animal beneath her. The wind brushed against her face, carrying the sense of grass and earth, and a laugh escaped her lips, free, light, and full of life. She rode across the field, the sun shining warmly, feeling the joy of independence and the strength of her own courage. The cowboy watched silently from a distance, a small smile on his face. He had given her safety and guidance, but it was her own courage and resilience that had brought her this far. He knew that she would continue to grow, to thrive, and to live a life defined by hope rather than fear. As she rode, she realized something important. The past would always be a part of her, but it did not have to control her future. She had faced her fears, built trust, and discovered her own strength. And now the world felt full of possibilities waiting for her to step into it with confidence. That evening, she returned to the ranch, brushing the horse's mane and smiling at the cowboy. "Thank you," she said simply, her voice filled with gratitude. "You don't need to thank me," he replied. "You did all the hard work. You faced your fears, made your choices, and built your life. I just helped you see that you could." She nodded, feeling a sense of peace and accomplishment. For the first time, she knew that she could face the future with courage, hope, and confidence. Her life was hers to shape, and she was ready to live it fully. The stars appeared over the ranch that night, twinkling in the clear sky. The girl lay in bed reflecting on her journey, from fear to courage, from pain to healing, from dependence to independence. She had discovered strength she never knew she had, learned to trust again, and realized that life could be kind and full of opportunities. And for the first time, she truly believed that she was free, not just from her father, but from fear, doubt, and the past that had held her back. The future was wide open, and she was ready to meet it with strength, courage, and hope.